Hey, and welcome to the airwaves. I'm Andy, K5PO, and I felt it was time for a bit of a station tour. See, I'm about to make some big changes to my station over the coming weeks, and I kind of wanted to document the way it is right now. The current station in this format has existed mostly like this since around 2020. When I last kind of redid the area, we'd expanded our house and I moved my shack from a room over there to its current location, which meant moving obviously every radio, every cable, rerouting everything. So it was a pretty dramatic effort. But in that time, I really kind of designed a room. I designed my shack to meet my needs, something I've been thinking about doing for a while at that time. And honestly, I've been tremendously happy with how that turned out and how well my shack design, desk, wiring, etc. has worked out for me. That said, I'm making some changes kind of to some of the core equipment, which will mean rewiring and redoing a lot of that. So let's kind of walk through from the operator position all the way out to the antennas, kind of the current setup. All right, so here's the primary, I say primary, here's the only operating position at K5PO, my station right now. Just a core rundown of some of the things you see here before we kind of dial in a bit. Um, Part of the design philosophy here was that I took those things I didn't need to touch or could in some way control via automation, and I moved them off the desk and into the sort of equipment room I designed behind the main operating position. That was an important thing to me. I kind of want to minimize what was on the desk, and that's something I'm actually going to do even more of in kind of this next relay of the operating position. So core kind of what you're going to touch and feel here. Let's go in. My main radio is my FTDX 5000 MP limited. FTDX 5000 MP limited, I believe, is the specific model. So this is a 200 watt radio, 6 meters through 160 meters. And it's honestly been a really solid radio. My favorite to date. It sounds great audio-wise, transmit and receive. I love it. It is a true classic. Tremendous amount of knobs and buttons. I love it. It's beautiful. But it will soon not be the primary radio. More on that later. For 2 meter and 70 centimeter stuff, I suppose 1.23 gigahertz, but I don't have any antenna for that, is the ICOM IC9700. This is obviously a tremendously cool little VHF UHF radio. It kind of does it all from whatever you want to do, from just working repeaters to single sideband to satellites, whatever you want. One of my favorite little pieces of equipment is the Array Solutions Power Master 2. This is basically just a quick power and SWR meter. It's a really sharp piece of kit, really fast. You can have multiple couplers on it. I have one on the HF side and then one on my VHF side. And it'll be able to read both of those quickly if I transmit in terms of power and SWR. A big piece of the control of the current station is the Microham Station Master. For me, what that's primarily doing is controlling an outdoor antenna switch that Microham makes that lets me quickly select from inside the station which of my HF antennas I want to use. I've got a couple out there, and we'll take a look at that when we get to that part of it. The way I primarily had this set up for the past few years is I had a Microham MicroKeer 3 that operated for the core interface with the FTDX 5000. And then that Microham MicroKeer 3 used what they call an iLink cable. It's like a little DIN cable to connect to the Station Master, and it sent all that data in terms of band and frequency that you're transmitted on, etc., to the Station Master. That way the Station Master knew which antennas to select from based upon which band I was operating on. For example, I have a couple of antennas that work on 40 meters, a couple of antennas that work on 20 meters. And it would pick my primary antenna when let's say I went to 40 meters. It would go, okay, cool, I'm gonna go to the vertical first, because that's what he likes. And then I could click this button and select the off-center fed dipole if I wanted for that band. I've got the Micro Keyer 3 out of the station right now because I'm already kind of working on tearing stuff up and messing around with it. So right now the band data is not automatically being sent to the station master. So I actually have to select the band and antennas manually here. Easy enough to do, but automation is actually the key of what this offers. I just don't have that hooked up right now. Let's go over to the gear behind the desk that you can see here. Up top here we have a RF Space SDR-IQ. I use that to take the IF out of the FTDX 5000, and then I run a panoramic display on my computer on my workstation because the FTDX 5000 doesn't have one of those. Beneath that, you see a Cantronics sweet little packet communicator, the KPC3 Plus, I believe it is. I have that hooked up to this little Kenwood TM281 here in case I want to run a little packet action or a digipeater or something like that. I have the Palstar HF Auto for my primary antenna tuner. It's done a bang-up job, and it can be controlled via this application, the HF Auto Controller from Mike Whiskey 0 Lima Golf Echo. Nice little app to control that via serial connection. Beneath the Palstar, I have the Meritron. I have the Alpha 9500 HF amplifier. Really a solid amplifier, classic. Get a bit of reflection from the glass here. I can of course open the glass if I need to access something from the front side, but I generally don't. This is a great amplifier. ADO Classic 8877 tube, powerhouse tube, low IMD products, lovely amplifier. Tucked away over there, I have the Yaesu SP2000 speaker. I love that speaker. That is a brilliant sounding speaker. And if you have it sitting in front of you, it's even better because you can use those little audio filters on it, do a little high cut or low cut or something. Awesome speaker all around. Great for any radio. Down below, I have the Green Heron Engineering RT21 rotator controller. It's been great. It does whatever you want a rotator controller to do, which is basically to control your rotator, and it does a great job of that. Over here I have a SSB Audio is the brand, which is a bit of a weird brand name, but it's been a really good product, and remote antenna switch. This particular antenna switch allows you to switch between 4 different coax connections. I have this one mounted out on the tower, and it's very wide-ranging in frequency operation. You can do, I think, from 160 meters all the way through UHF from one switch. That's pretty rare that a single switch can operate with that sort of frequency range, especially at full power. Right now it's relegated just to controlling between a 6-meter beam and a 2-meter beam up on the tower. A couple of pieces of software. This is the Alpha 9500 control software that I use to control the amplifier from my operating position. It basically mirrors the exact same front panel as the Alpha itself, so it's really intuitive. This is the Spectra View software. This is what my RF Space SDR-IQ is connected to allow me to control and see the band, but also to control what frequency I'm on. You can click to tune because it shares a CAT connection with anything else really I want from my PC. Speaking of, the Virtual Serial Port Emulator, or VSPE, brilliant little piece of software. In this particular case, I have the COM port that's coming out of the Yaesu FTDX 5000, which is actually going into an edge port, actual USB to 8 real serial port device. I'll show that in a second here. But I have the COM port coming out of the serial port coming out of FTDX 5000 going into this piece of software, and it actually splits it into a separate COM port that can be accessed from multiple applications simultaneously, so you don't run into those port conflicts. Great little tool. It generally actually runs in the background, but I popped it up here so I wouldn't forget about it. And the logging software I'm running is called Qlog. I'll probably go into this in a video in a bit more detail at another time, but I really like this software. Let's take a look at the background workings of the station. So literally just steps away from where I operate is the rest of it. And as you can imagine, in a world of wireless communications, there are more wires than you can possibly imagine. I still don't understand how we got that name. I will note that my shack, so to speak, my office, also doubles as a music production room. One of my other hobbies is electronic dance music production and general synthesizer fidgeting. So there are cables that do many, many things up in here, and they kind of cross over each other sometimes. So yeah, let's take a walk back here. My Ubiquiti Unify switch. I have all Ubiquiti Unify stuff for my networking. Got a bunch of these ISO bar power outlets from Triplite. Really a solid all-around power splitter, power bar sort of thing to have in your shack or anywhere else at your house. Got even more power down here, and you begin to see where the rest of the clutter of the station goes, because there are things going everywhere. I'll call it back here. You got a bus bar, and all of my station grounding is tied into this large copper bus bar. It runs that way, and then it connects to a huge chunk of copper strap that goes outside over there to my coax entrance panel and grounding panel, and then goes down into the ground with copper strap, and then into many ground rods that are all bonded together, and they're bonded to my commercial mains. A key point of grounding is if you're going to do this sort of in-station grounding, you have to bond it to your mains ground, your entrance panel ground for your electrical. Otherwise, you end up creating multiple ground points, and it doesn't do you any good. A couple of these little alpha delta switches. This one is for UHF, VHF type of stuff, so I can route it to a vertical I have, or to up to the 2-meter beam on the tower. This one's for HF. It generally doesn't change anything, or isn't really changed. I got a battery down here. Got a Astron power supply back over there, which you can't even see. A number of these little rig runner sort of things for DC power management. All good stuff here. I have a TE Systems 2-meter amplifier we didn't see from the front. Here is that edge port serial port tool that goes to USB, really solid. You see the back of the Palstar HF Auto. The working side of the Alpha 9500. Here's one of the couplers that the station master uses for VHF. The other coupler for HF is dangling over there. You can see these things got another ground connection here to a big chunk of copper that is attached to a chunk of copper strap that goes and meets the other chunk of copper strap. Generally speaking, when you're working with grounding stuff, you just want to keep it as short as it can and as low resistance as it can be. So big old copper strap certainly does that. Let's take it outside and see where things really get to happening. All right, we're now outside in my backyard. This is on, this little box is a, let's see, it's Kilo 7 Foxtrot Papa, I believe, is the company that makes these. Really cool little entrance grounding connection boxes. This is on the back side of the room we were just in. So the back side of the closet, this little porthole goes through there into the closet area. Got grounding bar coming down here. I tried to seal it with some foam stuff. The foam kind of died, but the copper strap is still well attached there with some bolts. We got bronze bolts, and then I've got copper grease between my connection points there. Similar sort of thing to what you're seeing down here with this strap. Copper grease and then firmly bolted connections. Got my coax that's coming out of the station They're all going through these little alpha, delta, surge, static lightning suppressor sort of things. Been a good unit, and they pass DC, which is really nice in the case that you may need to send DC for control to something. For example, my main HF feed is using a DC being passed through the coax for that SSB audio switch that's up on the tower. Then let's say I have a couple receiving receiving antenna feeds and some other control feeds coming out here. Copper strap going down to where it's clamped down to one of the ground rods, the closest ground rod. And the ground rod then has CAD weld or exothermic welding for a bunch of bare 4-gauge copper wire. Then it goes out to multiple ground rods that go around the tower base, and then multiple ground rods and additional 4-gauge copper wire that swing around the corner there to where my commercial mains are around that side of the house. So clear path and all grounded, all bonded together with 4-gauge copper bare wire, ground rods, and exothermic welding. The main HF coax comes out here to this micro ham antenna switch. Some of the coax goes into this pipe that I buried that goes and feeds stuff out to the far side of some of my property over there where I have a couple of antennas. And then some of it goes up the tower. Up the tower we have a Venture Skyhawk tri-bander for 10, 15, and 20. We have an M2 6-meter 3-element antenna and an M2 2-meter 12-element antenna. Over here we have blinded by the sun here, we have a DX Engineering Thunderbolt 40-meter and 80-meter vertical. Kind of up here in a way you probably can't see is a big inverted L for 160 meters. Over there, in a way you also probably can't see, is a shared apex loop array receiving antenna. Over here, there's a off-center fed dipole, a 2-meter vertical, and then up in the attic is a disco, an antenna for whatever else. So hey, that's the tour. That's really it. Again, a lot of changes coming here in the next couple of weeks, and I wanted to make sure I had documented what the station is currently like, because it's going to change a lot. And I always kick myself because I'm like, oh, how did I have it set up, a couple of years back, and I don't have it documented. So here we go. I'm trying to do this for myself, and hopefully you might have enjoyed the tour as well. Thanks so much for coming along, and more to come on what we do with the station here. Thanks for coming with us on the airwaves. I'm Andy, K5PO. Take care. 73. Be well.